Good morning, everyone. Another Wall Street Journal report from Lee, and another day, a lot of news. And I picked out, I think, 7 or 8 here. I think 8 different items, some of them pretty quick hitters to talk about today. And I hope you find them as interesting as I did opening and reading it today. So let's start first about I've titled it Apple Yawns. Apple made some releases yesterday. They stayed away from the iPhone. There's a problem with production with iPhone, so Apple kind of always wants to make releases right before they're available, and they can't make the 5G iPhone available right now, so they're holding off that announcement till later this year. By the way, that's 50% of the revenue, so investors are getting real nervous. They pumped this stock up tremendously, and but they can't get news on the 50% of their revenue. What the iPhone's going to do, is it going to be big enough, other than 5G, to convince lots of users to upgrade? So I don't know. Different words out there around the Apple sphere about possible releases, but if it's 5G only, we'll see. That may be another yawn out of Apple. So they released another iWatch. This one's got an oxygen meter. Interesting, oxygen level is related highly to the COVID issues, because a lot of people got COVID. Their oxygen levels dropped dramatically, and many of them weren't aware of it. I talked to a friend of mine that works in intensive care unit at a local hospital, and he said they saw people in intensive care talking to the nurse with oxygen levels that were so low that they'd never seen anybody actually verbally communicate while they're at that level. So that's an interesting feature. I guess, you have to wait a few minutes for it to measure, but it actually looks at the, with light, looks at your blood vein and can calculate the oxygen level from that. You can buy quick, oxygen meters off Amazon for, I think, $13, $15. Throw them in your first aid box and have them available when you need it. That's what I do. But I understand the wish to have that built right into your watch. They've also announced a Fitness Plus program that you pay $9.99 a month on it, and it links your watch to that fitness program, and then you can watch these workouts on TV. I don't know if that's Apple TV or if it's another streaming channel. I haven't got the details of that yet. Maybe some of my listeners know about that, but again, it's kind of a fitness program. Looks like it's going after some of the other fitness programs where you watch a TV program and exercise on a bike or a running pad or whatever. So the other thing is iPad Airs. A new iPad Air has been released. Really, it's much faster processor, and they've got a Touch ID on the side that you can quickly power the unit back on. Looks like just an observation is that the touch pads are winning out over the Face ID. Face ID takes a while, and people are wanting to go faster with the Touch ID. So I just helped somebody set up a new Apple Air, the laptop, for someone, and it has one key that's dedicated to Touch ID. And when you load new apps or you buy something, you can just touch that and then pay with Apple Pay. It's pretty slick, and bring up the laptop very quickly too. So I think the Touch ID might win out over the Face ID, especially with lots of us covering our face with masks. Apple also announced bundled services. So they've bundled a lot of their services into plans that you can buy now. So the family plan for $20 a month, I think, includes up to 5 people. It includes the Apple TV, the iCloud. You pay every month for so much iCloud storage. Includes Apple Arcade, which I can't tell you much about, and also Apple Music. So the full Apple Music. I tried to add up my packages real quick. The problem is I get Apple TV for free right now because I bought some new Apple TV boxes, the latest generation. So I really don't pay for Apple TV. But if I were paying for Apple TV, it looks like I'd save a little bit, a few dollars a month if I did that right now for my wife and I. Obviously, a bigger family could save more on that. So again, not much to talk about, not much excitement in today's Wall Street Journal, that's for sure. Second article, NFL is missing some fans. So if you get your news from Facebook, and I hope you don't, I hope you get it from me, but if you do, you might have seen some memes out that have blamed this viewership decline in the NFL on these football players getting into social justice, supporting BLM, and so they're saying that issue is the reason why there's less football fans watching it, because they're frustrated. They want to escape life, watch just a football game, and they're seeing everything on their jersey and on the field and on signs in the stadium and so on. And there's some sense of that. There was booing at the Kansas City game that had fans. I didn't hear about the other game, whether there was only one other game with live fans. I didn't hear if they booed when they joined arms and fists and whatever they do at middle of the field before the game. So there's some sense of that. But like anything, when somebody gives you a simple answer, it's either for the confirmation bias because that's the belief they have and everything they see supports that belief, or it's to cover up the additional facts that they just haven't told you about. So everything's not as simple as a Facebook meme, and that's one reason, by the way, you'll very seldom see me use them. I think some of them are neat, they're funny, I enjoy them, but I won't use them because they paint a solution as being much simpler than it really is. So there's a multitude of reasons that may have affected NFL attendance. First of all, the social justice protest certainly has contributed. There's also lots of sports on TV right now. When we had none before with COVID, all of a sudden everybody's piling there. So we got NBA, we got hockey, we got US Open, and we got baseball. And baseball is intriguing because there's only 11, 12 games left. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's coming down to the wire very quickly about baseball. NBA obviously is in the playoffs right now. So there's a lot of competition going on with the NFL. The other thing is, interesting enough, is news is being watched by lots of people. Cable news this Sunday was up 50% over the same period last year. So 50% up. People are watching news. There's a lot of news. There's fire going on. There's protests going on. And obviously we got a presidential election going on. So there's a lot of people, both candidates are out drumming up support. So a lot of news around, a lot of news. So that's up. And then the other reason some people pointed out, and I thought it was interesting, there's been no preseason football this year. So there's been no buildup for the season. It just hit us right quickly. And that may have tamped down some of the support. So again, the season opener, by the way, was down 11% from last year attendance. And there was a few games. Fox had a few games that drew real well. The Brady game drew real well. I think everybody wanted to see how Brady was going to do at another team. Is he really that good that it's transferable to another team? Well, maybe the jury's still out on that, but he certainly didn't do it the first game. So, but again, ignore simple reasons. Watch Lee and get the more nuanced reasons behind some of these stories. Another quick hitter, New York hotels are closed. Did you know that more than 100 hotels in New York City are still closed? 100 hotels in New York City. That's a lot. New York City has a lot of hotels. Trust me, I've stayed there. I've stayed in many hotels in New York City. I stayed there for 13 months on a contract, and every night I stayed there was at a hotel. And but 100 hotels. This gives you how the effect of the COVID is on large metro cities. Item number 4, Starbucks is moving to the suburbs. You know, they really started in the cities, and that was the exciting place to go in the cities, and now it appears that they're moving to the suburbs. The central business stores are down in revenue, and the suburban stores are up in revenue. There's 8,900 stores that Starbucks has. 3% of them are still closed, only 3%. Most of them are open, very few for dine-in type, drinking your coffee in the store. So most of those 3% that are still closed are in large cities. And you can just imagine the New York City, 100 hotels closed. I got to imagine there's multiple Starbucks in Manhattan that haven't opened back up because there's no traffic. So, by the way, they're focused more on the building. The new stores are all in the suburbs. And interesting thing they found out with the suburban stores is there's not enough parking. And those of you that have driven by one recently, you'll notice the parking lots are full, unlike they ever have been. They're full, right? But you say there's nobody drinking coffee in the Starbucks, and that's right. They're waiting for coffee to be delivered to their car. And so, and by the way, there's a line going through the drive-through too. So there's kind of two different pickups there: a drive-through, and then this pre-order thing that you pull into the parking lot and they come find you with a coffee. My son and I went to one. We couldn't even actually find a spot. We had to park across the street and then walk over and pick it up at a window at the Starbucks. So life throws curves. You build this business and you think you have plenty of parking spots, and business changes, and now 30 spots in a Starbucks aren't enough parking. So Omaha, Warren Buffett, he's not supporting Biden this year. This is not a news story you've heard. Maybe you've heard it from Lee for the first time. This is a real interesting story. He's not put any money in the campaign this year. He's not helped campaign himself, or he's not made an endorsement. Okay. And is that significant? Lee thinks so. In 2008 and 2012, he helped Obama out. He campaigned, put a lot of money in. 2016, supported Hillary. Again, put money in and campaigned and endorsed. He's out of it now. And by the way, that congressional district in Omaha is a real toss-up district. So it's an interesting district that goes back and forth. It's 48, 46%, Republican, Democrat. I think it's a little slightly higher Republican right now, but really close. So, is this an issue with Biden? Is this an issue with an older guy that just decided to get out of politics? Does he not like Biden? Does he not like the Democrat platform? Does he no longer hate Trump because his businesses are doing well, but he really doesn't want to show he supports Trump? It's a lot of observations. I'd be curious to hear what you think about Warren Buffett and why he chose to get out, because he's got a lot of money, right? I mean, these guys can. Who's the guy in New York gave $100 million to Florida for Democratic support the other day? $100 million for these guys is nothing. Sixth article. The hospital is a source for COVID. So interesting enough, the CDC changed their data collection methods, and around the middle of May, May 14th to July 14th, they required additional data from hospitals. Why they cut it off, I don't know. And you'll find here it's interesting data, and we no longer have it. But they required additional data from hospitals about cases that were possibly related to infections they received in the hospital. And so during that time period, 120 people a day became infected inside hospitals. 120 people a day. Now, during that time period, hospitals in the US had an average of almost 26,000 COVID-19 patients in the hospital. So you got to believe that the infections were there. Some people were going to get infected. 120 people a day is significant. And but an observation in the past, we've all known that got some comments here and they're distracting me. That's okay though. We've all known that hospitals are places to get infections, and years ago hospitals finally figured this out and really worked hard on secondary infections. That people came in there for one reason and got a secondary infection, and they worked hard on it. I remember the stories about doctors' ties. They worked really hard on washing hands and everything, and getting new gown over you and everything. And then some person one time says, "Hey, wait a minute. What about jewelry? What about the badge that the doctors wear? What about the stethoscope? What about their tie?" And on average, a doctor had cleaned their tie every 78 days. So, yeah, I've got a comment say, maybe Buffett's turned 90. He's moved his priorities away from politics. Well, we'll see. We'll see if Danny turns away from politics when he gets 90. If and when he gets to 90, I'm not sure I'm going to get there. So, they found that ties were a source of infections because doctors never washed them. They washed their hands 20 times a day and wore this old nasty tie that they've been wearing for years. And so now some doctors have this elbow down philosophy that everything from the elbow down has got to be short sleeve shirts. They found out long sleeve shirts were not good because they tracked infections and the doctor didn't wash enough. And jewelry, they pulled jewelry off and cleaned stethoscopes better. So interesting story there, but keep in mind, you should only go to hospital when you have to, or if you're visiting, limit those visits to those ones you love. I think most hospitals are doing that. I think the hospital I'm going to, you can only have one visitor per day, and when they leave, period, for that day. They can't come back. They can't track back in and forth. So that's good. I think we need to do that. Another article about Electoral College. Electoral College is and Danny's saying that when I turn 90, I'm not going to do these videos. Maybe I'll be much too ugly and my mind not working too well to do them. But anyways, Electoral College is a bulwark against fraud. And so, think about this. There's a lot of Democrats and liberals that want to do away with Electoral College. They're frustrated that Hillary won the popular vote, but yet there's not president. And so they want to change that. So just think about the way the Electoral College works and the way popular vote works. If you had a popular vote system, you can cheat anywhere and it has the same effect. Okay, so you can cheat in California, Maine, Illinois, Arizona. It doesn't matter. One more vote counts the same as it counts everywhere. But with Electoral College, you have to be really smart about where you cheat. And why do I say that? Well, if you have the Electoral College, you would never cheat in California. California Democrats are going to win. By the way, I predict this. I'm really good at this. I predict that Democrats will win California in 2020. they will win that state by far. Okay, we're done with it. And by the way, you don't see presidential candidates going out there very much. Trump went out there the other day around the fire reason, and got a lot of press for it with Newsom, but he didn't go out there to gain any votes. It's not going to help him win the election. California is a done deal. So you got to find the swing states. So you say, well, that's real easy. No, it's not. It's very difficult. Could you have predicted in the year 2000 that Florida was going to be the issue? And but by the way, in 2004, would you then use that experience to say, oh, 2004, it's going to be in play again? George Bush won it by 300,000 votes. So it's real difficult to figure out. Did Hillary, if somebody could have told Hillary, Michigan, she lost Michigan by 10,000 votes, would she have done something in Michigan? Certainly. Okay, but she didn't know that. Not sure Trump knew it either, by the way. A lot of people give Trump knowledge for knowing that. He at least went there. You can say that for him, and Hillary didn't. But finding these swing states, you may be able to this year say, okay, there's 7 to 9 swing states, but if you're going to cheat, you got to cover your odds, right? So you got to bet everywhere. So to Democrats wishing for a popular vote, you got to ask yourself, do we trust Republicans not to cheat? Because once we put this in place, both parties can get that done. And do we think Republicans are not going to cheat? Or do we think that our side is better at cheating? Maybe that's the truth, and they can go to the popular vote and be ensured that they're better at cheating. But that's brave thought. So so that's that for that. Okay, so last item. Coal is now equaling, and I'm going to share a screen here, is now equaling renewable energy for energy production in the country. And that's significant. I think you're going to find some of you are surprised by that. Make sure I get the right page here. So I'm going to make sure that I'm projecting this correct. So I am. So you can see that in just a few years ago, Obama years, coal was at 22 quadrillion BTUs, a measurement I'm sure most of you are familiar with, and renewables is 6. A significant difference. Hope I'm using the right years here. I'm trying to. Yeah, significant difference. You can see the fall off for coal is just dramatic, and the rise of renewable is almost as dramatic over the last few years. And so coal is now at 11, and let me try to get this right. Renewables, 11. They're both 11.3, and I think 11.1. Getting it right. Yeah, 11. I'm rounded off 11.1. So they're right there, equal to each other. Coal's dramatically dropped off. So you go back here and drop that off. So hope that helped you understand the change. And that's not got a lot of press. It doesn't help environmentalists because what it says is environmentalists haven't driven this. I got to tell you, this is market forces. And I think if Obama, and Hillary would have understood that, they got a lot more votes from the coal district. The coal is going to die a natural death. And smart people would understand that and say, why do we need to get government in the middle of that? Let it die a natural death. Natural gas production in the U.S. has been almost solely responsible for that. So, so actually, by the way, Trump promised help for the coal industry. Part of his promises in running for the president in 2016. And actually, coal is fallen faster under Trump than it was under Obama. So, really, the people working in the coal industry ought to be madder at Trump. But really, what he did is took the government out and says, look, I'll let market forces handle it. And by the way, I'll support natural gas, fracking, and so on, and it'll happen. By the way, in 2020, there's already been 13 closures announced of coal plants. Now, some of them may not occur until 10 years. I think the Four Corners one, many of you are familiar with that one in New Mexico. I think it's located in New Mexico, but right in the Four Corners area. I think that's 2030 is the close date. My prediction is as we get closer to that date will be moved back and it'll happen sooner. So, by the way, 2 of them have been converted to natural gas already this year. And that's the big one is if they keep the plants at all versus closing them down completely, they convert them. Remember, most coal plants are at least 40 years old. They're old plants, old technology, haven't been updated. So these are old plants. So, by the way, the CO2 emissions in the U.S. were down 14.6%, 14.6% in 2019. So, and by the way, that was joined by a 16% drop in the use of coal. So, coal is a huge CO2 emission contributor, and coal is dropping off very quickly. I've been in Arizona. There's been a big fight here with a coal plant that's near the Indian reservation, on the Indian reservation or near. I think it's on it, technically. And a lot of the Indians, by the way, are most upset. A lot of them are off the grid. They don't get electricity from that plant, but they go over there and get coal and burn coal in their house. Many of us that are old enough, Roger included, probably grew up with a coal-fired furnace. I remember how dirty they were in the basement, and but it moved off, But the Indians, a lot of the native Indians, are still burning coal in their house, and they won't have a source for coal anymore. So it's been a fight in Arizona. So, and by the way, the coal plants. One of the problems I have, just from the business-oriented people that I know joined my call, is they have real high fixed cost, but they're running less and less. And so those of you that have this business knowledge know this fixed cost you can't fix. There's no fix to it. And so the way you maximize high fixed costs is you run it all the time, right? Well, they're not needed to run all the time, and so therefore so Roger tells me here I hauled coal to make a few dollars as a high school student. There's nothing worse than hauling coal. Ooh, ooh. And Danny says, anyone remember they banked their furnace? That's exactly right. And my dad would make a lot of noise. I moved down to the basement as a young person. My brother and I moved down to there, and he would go down there late at night and work on that coal furnace. And boy, it made a lot of noise. But I remember it had a lot of options to it, and some of you might remember this, the older ones. At the end of the month, we'd run out of money. My dad was a cash man, so if he had no cash, he had no coal. And so he would bring oak skids home from Whirlpool Corporation that he would get out in the parking lot, I guess. And us boys would tear them oak skids apart and cut them up, and then we'd put them in the coal furnace and burn oak the last few days of the month when we had no money for coal. So it had some options that these modern systems don't give us these days. My gas-fired furnace gives me no option to burn skids if I run out of money. So thanks for the comments today. Hope you found this interesting. Hope you think about it. And somebody else had a comment, hometown West Virginia is a ghost town, used to be a bustling company town. That's, I think, what some of the coal effect is going to be. So appreciate the comments. Hope you enjoyed it today. Thanks for joining me, and have a great week. See you tomorrow with another Wall Street Journal Daily Update. Cheers.